in RAP, we do have transactional application, and transactional application base, the oData service which support transactional behavior can be generated in two ways. One, I can say managed RAP implementation. And one, we can call it as an unmanaged RAP implementation. So we'll start with something called managed. Okay. So I'll just show you one quick diagram for that. Okay. So each of the RAP architecture has its own set of life cycle. Okay. I can say it is having its own set of life cycle methods. So what all thing a RAP managed architecture contain, or in layman's term, what is a manage? Okay. So I'll just give you a simple definition. Maybe it's not some bookish information. It's something that I experienced. So maybe I guess it should help you and grasp, I can say the context, like why it is called managed and why it is called unmanaged. When it called managed, when it calls unmanaged, the question would be who. I mean, who is managing? I can say who is managing all the transactional calls implementations. Okay, so the question would be that who is managing all the transactional calls implementation? So if the answer to this question is standard SAP, I mean, we are not required to do any sort of logic writing to do this, then it is called manage. Now, all those standard calls that we are talking about can be nothing but all the basic REST API behaviors, or I can say REST API functionalities. For example, be it a create, a read, update, delete, and query. So who is going to handle, or I can say who is going to provide the output whenever I am receiving a create call? Now, upon create call, my expectation will be that a record will be created. So am I required to write any specific logic other than the business logic, because each business has its own set of logic? So definitely business logic is something that you would be writing, but am I required to write any sort of such specific logic for the record to get created into the system at the ABAP layer? If the answer is no, it means it's a managed implementation. Okay. Sorry, I will. Okay, I'll mute all of us. Okay, so in case you have any queries, please feel free to just to avoid any sort of disturbance. Okay, another point is unmanaged. So in this case as well, the question will be same, that who is going to manage all the transactional behavior. But in this case, I can say if the answer is the application developer, okay, then it means it's a unmanaged. Okay, simple. It's a simple thing. Okay, so for example, if I do have a travel table in which I do have something called travel date. Okay, so when I do have a travel date, simple thing is if my user is having a very nice viewer screen on his device, if he's entering the information in a travel date, okay, and number of other information as well, and the moment he's saying create, then upon clicking of this create button, a record should get created in my travel tables. As simple as that. So in case of a managed rep application, system itself will take care of this, I can say functionality. You are not required to write any logic in order for the system to insert the data into the database table, update the data into database table, delete, read, or query. You are not required to write any ABAP logic. I am not saying anything. I mean, definitely we have to prepare the skeleton at least, but you are not required to write any ABAP logic. Is not required for, I can say, basic transactional behavior. Okay, so there is a meaning of unmanaged. In case of unmanaged, yeah, we'll need a web logic which will be writing. So there will be some new language as well. We'll be learning called EML, called entity manipulation language. This is something we'll be learning, I guess, in some time. So first we'll start with managed. We'll try to generate a wrap service from the scratch, using which we should be able to generate the transactional behavior of an application. So definitely, I guess, as we generated the read-only application, in this case as well, we'll start with a travel, which will be a root node, and there will be a booking, which will be a um, child node for that. Okay, so using this, we'll generate our first something called a data model. Our very first step. Okay, once we do have the data model, my another step, okay, will be that we'll be generating, I can say at end, definitely the service over here, service definition and service binding. But in between, in order for us to have the managed implementation, we will inherit, or I can say we will generate the behavior definition and behavior projection. So this behavior definition and projection will be responsible. This guys will be responsible for transactional behavior. Okay, so now if we just go over here and just see that particular nice screenshot, maybe you should get a bit of idea over here. So if you see the development flow for managed scenario, so this is where we are starting with. We'll have the definition, I can say our data model generated, and service binding and definition is something we'll also be generating. But we'll enrich this particular data model with the behavior definition and projection, which will play a mediator role. And as a result of it, we'll see a transactional behavior getting generated. Okay, so this is something that we'll be doing. In case needed, additionally, we'll also be writing a web code for that. Okay, so let's just start with that. So I just go here. Yeah. Okay, so now I'll just close mostly all the things. So at least we are very clear on what we are actually going to do. Okay, so let's just do one thing. Okay, let's wait for a minute. Okay, let's just start with at least a package. So at least we'll have all the objects that we are going to generate for the managed scenario in a single package, and going forward, we'll be able to visualize what all things we generated. Okay, so I'll just say, yeah, set you RFP, manage app application. Okay, we'll be using it for the development purpose. Maybe there is a component called is that local. This is what ideally we have been provided. Okay, let's just use the same transport request over here. So we are starting from very scratch. We have our first package in the system, and into which we'll be generating and creating all the objects for the managed app behavior. So I'll just copy this, add this in my favorite package. Okay, So we are ready. So now our very first and foremost thing over here will be that we are willing to generate, I can say, travel application over here. Okay, so let's just do one thing. So let's just visualize the table that we are going to use as a part of the data source for us. In addition, the one into which we are going to place the entries as well, correct? Because when I say I am going to place the entries into it, it means those will be the table which will behave as a, I can say, data centers for me as well. So these are the DMO travel. These one of the table that we are going to use. So let's just start with this. Let's just try creating the, yeah. So there is a DMO travel app. So this is going to be my first and foremost table for that. So always follow certain scenarios. So as I mentioned, I guess we learned VDM, right? So the first and foremost thing should be that you are creating interface views. Then you are creating R views. These are the one which will be responsible for transactional behaviors. And the third thing, or I can say very important thing over here is the C view, which are the consumption. Now the interface views that we are going to create should at least get the data from the database table. So at least we will be knowing what all things it would need. Okay, so for example, if I just start from the scratch, I'll just go and start creating my first view. Okay, here I'll just go, I'll just copy this name and we'll use a keyword called TP. So that is the keyword that you will find in most of the views generated by the standard as well. So the TP means transactional processing. Okay, so that's something that you will see in any of the views which are uh, uh, going to, I guess, carry the transactional behavior logic, or I can say on which the behaviors will be created in a layman term. Okay, so I'll just simply go over here and just say create a core data services. Core data services. I'll just say CDS where it is. So here I do have a data definition. So first thing, your interface views, what it should be. Your interface view should be your entity. Okay. So I'll just say ZI travel for my transactional processing app. Okay. So I'll just say ZI travel, but let's just say this for my managed scenario. I can say travel view for manage scenario because we are going to implement multiple scenarios, manage, unmanaged, and manage is also having two more flavor, unmanaged, save, and additional save. Okay, someone has already created. So let's just follow our own convention over here that said EO is for EDU ocean. So I guess that will be our own. I don't see anyone else would be using that. Okay, other than us. Okay, so here we'll be creating something called defined view entity. Remember, whenever you are consuming a table, you are going to make it reusable, never make it root, because a root is a component of a business hierarchy, business object node hierarchy. So if you're going to create a root, no one other than you will be able to use it. Okay, so I'll just say define view entity. So at least it would become reusable. So going forward, if I'm going to develop an unmanaged application as well, then also I can reuse this. Okay. So here in this case, the simplest thing which I mentioned over here is that I'll be copying this over here and I'll just specify certain thing. I'll just say MO travel over here. Okay. Now I'll just enter all these fields which I had. Okay. So it just generated certain set of fields for me. Now, okay. So now the thing that we are going to do over here is we would be required to specify certain thing in order for the at least in order for the system to recognize what is the purpose of each and every field. Okay, so first thing, for example, the booking fee over here, right? So booking fee is a amount, so which can be 1,000, 100, it can be varying from a number. But When I say a booking fee, what will it be what will be counted in, whether it will be US dollar or INR or whatever it would be. For that, we have certain semantics. So first thing is you would be generating interface views and enriching it with the semantics annotation. So I'll just say semantics over here. Okay, and in the semantics, what it is, whether it's amount or currency, so quantity. So I'll just say it's an amount. Okay, so if it's an amount, I'll just write AM. Oh, it is taking some time. Yeah, over here. Amount, and then we do have a currency code. Okay, so here the currency code in my case will be something called currency code. So here I just copy and paste it over here. Okay, likewise, we have multiple of them. So I'll just copy and paste it because I do have single currency code, which I want to relate to each one of them. First thing. Second, while you are going with a managed scenario, all we want is that while I'm creating an entry should get created into my database table. It means I need some sort of recognition on who created the entry, when created the entry. Okay. So definitely at ABAP layer, we do have a system variables. We can use it. But here we are trying to reduce the number of ABAP line of code we use, right? And that's the reason for each and every such field, we would be providing some semantics. Okay. So for example, I'll just say semantic. Okay. And here we'll say what is the semantics is for. So I'll just say it's for user. Okay, and here I'll just say this is my created by person, the person who is going to create it. So it means the moment a record is getting inserted into the database table, the field will get the user ID from your session, the current user information. Okay, so this is something that system will get automatically. Another thing, created at. So whenever your entry is getting created, we want that the system's date and time information should also be stored over here, saying like when this record was created. So I'll just say created at. So these are all built-in annotation, which gives the semantics, the purpose of each and every field that you are carrying. Okay, same goes over here. So for example, if I just say last change at, here it's not definitely the created at for sure, but I would have something called the current user's last change it. So there are two things we would be discussing what it is. For now, let's just go with local instance last change at, because the last change at will come into picture when we want a global information. And what does it mean? For example, if I do have a draft enable application, that's something we'll also be learning. At that point in time, last change at is also required. So currently we'll just go with the local last change at. Okay. Another thing, last change by. So I'll just go over here and just say semantic user. And we'll just say, sorry, it would be a change by in this case. Last change by, I guess that's what we can call it as, right? Okay, so we'll just generate this view, we'll activate this. So this will become our one of the data source that we'll be using going forward in my transactional processing application. Okay, same way we would also need another view. And what that another view will be called? That another view will be nothing but your booking view. Okay, so we'll also start creating something called booking view in this case. So I'll just go over here and just say I want another view. I'll just go ahead and create one more. Data definition. Again, this will be my interface view, ZI, I'll just say EO, and I'll just say booking M. I'll just say booking view or manage M. Next. Next, and we'll create again a view entity. Okay. So now I'll just go over here and just say that this time I am interested in create another view, but here this time my data source. So I'll just go in this booking. I'll just say this time my data source will be booking. So I guess we do have another table which are on the same line. So maybe system has two of such table, I guess. That's already there. Let's just try using that. Booking M, yeah. So ultimately, there are certain tables which are already created with the data pre-filled. So at least we can use it for certain purpose. So maybe this M is having some sort of a data that we already need, already maintain. Okay, so I'll just use it over here, booking M. Okay, insert. Oh, damn it. What's going wrong? Why it is not suggesting me to select all the fields? It's weird. Oh, I guess did we just specified one slash slash? I guess we just missed one slash, which is this one. Now we do have the fields. Okay. So I guess we just typed the name of the table wrong. That's the reason. Okay. So now I guess you know, right, what we have to specify over here. So in this particular case as well, we have to specify a couple of things. So first thing we will be specifying is the information that's semantics.amount over here. Okay, and we'll say that what is the currency code for this. So here, if I just say control space, you will get the list of field. I'll just say currency code. Very sweet thing. Now I'll just go over here and I'll just specify last change at, and here I'll simply specify semantics over here. And here I want to again specify some system date time, but we want the system to do that thing for you. So I'll just say simply local last change at. Okay, so we do have two views created. So going forward, we won't be considering directly using the table, but instead, whenever we need the data, we'll be using the views. Whenever we want to place the data back, then we'll be using the table. So there is a base rule. Whenever you need the data, whenever you want to query the data, use the views. Whenever you want to push the data back, use the database tables. Okay, so these are first and foremost thing you should be knowing. Now, if I just try to check the data, if there are any already available as a part of this view, we should be able to get very nice information over here. Okay, so we have a good amount of data over here, and I guess maybe travel is something that we already checked some time back, so I am not going into that details right now. Okay, so these are the two things that we generated, the base views along with the semantics. Now, next step for us will be to give some sort of a transactional behavior to it. Okay, so I we created interface views within certain property, which is a
Sumit, your voice is breaking.
okay, just a sec. Hello. Is it is it for everyone? Is it breaking for everyone? Is it clear? Can you please confirm?
Yeah, now it's fine, I think.
Okay.
Earlier it was breaking.
Okay, maybe there will be some issues with the earphone. Sorry. Let's see. I'll try to keep it as close to my mouth as I can. Okay. Don't worry. Yeah, but in case you feel you are not getting something which I am trying to convey, please feel free to ask. Don't worry. Okay. So another thing. So now let's just move one more step forward. So interface view, which